Football is back, and for the next 20 to 25 weeks, our mental health is going to be decided on our favorite team's success. And just like any other year, I'm here for the ride. Go Browns! But if you like sports podcasts, I'm telling you, this is the channel for you. I've been dropping 4 videos a week for about a year now, as we're approaching that 1-year mark. So if you enjoyed at any point, please support us down the road, on the road to 1,000 subscribers. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast, and we're going to start off with a recap of last year, but then we're going to hop into week 1 and give you our predictions. Kicking off here with a recap from last year. Last year we started this podcast at week 6, and from week 6 on, throughout the rest of the season, we kept track of our record. We had a record of 130, 73, and 1. That one was the Damar Hamlin game. But overall, I had a 64% regular season record. In the playoffs, I had a 9-4 record, but 9-4 record there, so basically a 69% in the playoffs, 64 in the regular season. Not too shabby, but I want to do way better than that. I want to be in the 70-75 range this year. Well, of course, I want to be 100, but realistically, I'm shooting for 70% this year, and it all starts here Thursday Night Football, which kicks off tonight here at around 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The Detroit Lions going to Arrowhead to take on the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Over the last 22 years, the defending Super Bowl champions are 18-4 in week 1 of that following season. Kansas City, first off, congratulations on the Super Bowl. Another one would make this exact core a dynasty, and I know that's in their intentions this year. But star tight end Travis Kelce, he recently hyperextended his knee, as most of us know. He's going to be questionable for tonight's game. I would put my money on it that he's going to sit out tonight's game, but he will of course be there for the celebration. For Detroit, this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations this year. I know it's 2023, it's crazy to say that, but it all starts here. This is a super young and talented team that, at the very least, is trying to at least get their first playoff win since 1991. So it's been a long time for Detroit, but this could be the year where they turn things in the right direction. But for this game, however, I'm hoping for a shootout just like everybody else. The last time that Jared Goff and Pat Mahomes met on a primetime game, it was maybe the greatest Monday Night Football game of all time. The Rams and the Chiefs both had 50-plus points. Both teams had 500-600 passing yards, and I think the Rams came out with the win at the end. I'm not expecting that crazy of a game here tonight, but I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game on both sides, maybe in the 30s or high 20s, and the Chiefs are going to come out with the win at the very end. As, again, I think the Chiefs are going to start this game strong like they typically do. The Lions are going to try and rally, but the Chiefs are going to hold on at the end and win this game by a field goal or so at the end of the game. Moving over to the Sunday night games, though, or the Sunday games around 1 o'clock, we have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. The best division in football, the AFC North, will be on display early here with this matchup. As for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, he's returned to practice already. He's going to play in this game, and Cleveland's had his number, safe to say, as he's 1-4 against the Browns in his career, and he has yet to win a game on the road, which is crazy to say as a Browns fan. But for the Browns in this game, we have a bit of a revamped defense, a new defensive coordinator, Zadarius Smith, Juan Thornhill. We have some defensive pieces that we've added to this team, while also some pieces offensively highlighted by Elijah Moore, receiver there from New York. If you follow this channel at any point, you know that I'm a big fan of Cincy this year. I think they win the Super Bowl in my opinion. However, in this game, I will take the Browns in week 1 in a wild finish. I'm a Browns fan, and right now, our hopes are high. So I'm hoping we can at least start the season off on a good note. This is where my bias comes into play, but I do think the Browns can win this game. Moving over to Arizona and Washington. Arizona, they just traded for Joshua Dobbs, and he's going to be the starter for this team. And that is really the story of this game, is it's going to be Joshua Dobbs or Clayton Tune versus the best defensive line in football for the Washington Commanders. As I hope Chase Young plays in this one for the Commanders, but we never know. He hasn't really played since his rookie season. Regardless, give me the hungry Commanders in this one. Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy and this offense get all on the right foot. And for our fantasy players out there, hopefully Jahan Dotson has a touchdown or two in this game. Houston and Baltimore. This game highlights new beginnings for both of these teams, As for Houston, you have a new head coach in DeMeco Ryans, a former player for the organization. You have a new quarterback in C.J. Stroud, a new edge in Will Anderson, the number 2 and 3 overall picks there. For Baltimore, you have a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. You brought in Zay Flowers. This offense is looking to take a different approach than they have in this Lamar Jackson era, as they've kind of been that run-heavy pistol scheme that throws when they have to. It's going to be the reverse this year, I think. They're going to pass the ball early and often, and we know Todd Monken has led some explosive offenses. Maybe he can do that here in Baltimore. I believe Baltimore uses their veteran experience and this new aggression offensively to get ahead early in this game, and I believe, I will say this, I could very well see a blowout in this game, with it being C.J. Stroud's first game, with the first game jitters, and it's just being an overall young team in Houston. I could see it being a blowout, but I hope that I see this team fight a little bit in this game, and I hope that they make it an interesting finish. Matter of fact, you know what, let's say this. I'm going to say Houston storms back in the second half, but they try to make a game-winning drive, and they throw an interception to newly acquired Rock Ya-Sin there for Baltimore. If you know, you know. That's a Madden legend in Rock Ya-Sin. Moving over to Tampa Bay, going to Minnesota. The post-Brady era starts now in Tampa, with Baker Mayfield leading the charge. And while Minnesota looks to repeat on their success from last year, they're gonna have to start out. They're gonna have to start here with an interesting Tampa Bay team. And speaking of them, I do think, and this is a bold prediction, as a Browns fan, I'm not the biggest fan of Baker. However, I do think this will be the best version of Baker we will have ever seen here at the pro level. And I'm not saying that it's gonna lead to a bunch of wins for this Tampa team. And I'm not gonna say he's gonna be the next franchise guy for Tampa. But I do believe there's enough around him to succeed this season, and at least more than he has early on in his career. So I do think we're going to see a resurgence here from Baker Mayfield, and he at the very least proves that he will be in this league for the next decade. For Minnesota, it won't be easy to repeat on their success from last year, especially with how much they lost defensively this offseason. However, they still have the best receiver in football, arguably, and they added my favorite rookie wide receiver in this draft class to this offense to pair with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. This is an offense that should be top 5 in the league with how much they're going to have to score with TJ Hockenson, with Madison, Jefferson, Addison. Those all kind of rhyme, but with all those weapons, I think they can be a top 5 offense this season. And again, it all starts here against a stingy Tampa defense. I believe this game is going to get off to a slow start. Maybe it's no double digits until the second half for either team. And this could be an upset game, in my opinion. I think if Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett and this defensive line gets off to an early start, it could be an interesting finish. But I will take Minnesota to pull away in the second half of this game, as I think Jordan Addison might have the game-winning touchdown. And that is, of course, my hope for this game. Moving over to Carolina, going to Atlanta. This is a very interesting NFC South division this year. You can really see it going any direction. But this game will be headlined by the rookies, of course, as Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, will make his debut for Carolina, and he will be backed by Frank Reich, the new head coach there in Carolina. And then for Atlanta, they drafted Bijan Robinson. All the hype this offseason has been around Bijan, as they say he could be a receiver, a running back, a returner. We're looking to see all the brilliance that he had at Texas coming to the pros for Atlanta in a run-heavy offense. I do think Bijan has a mediocre game, just with the committee that they want to run there in Atlanta. However, I'm going to hope that Kyle Pitts can finally get back on his feet and show us that potential he showed us at Florida when he made Kyle Trask a draftable quarterback. Atlanta at home here, and Stroud's first game, or not Stroud, but Bryce Young's first game. Give me Atlanta to take this one at home to get their season on the right start, or to start it on the right foot, because I do believe Atlanta wins this division in 2023. Jacksonville going to Indianapolis, battle of the AFC South. For one team in this matchup, they have Super Bowl aspirations. And for the other team in this matchup, well, the focus on this team has mostly been off the field, especially with their owner, Jim Irsay. But Anthony Richardson is going to be making his first career start of his career for the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, Jonathan Taylor, one of the best players on this team, will not be playing in this one. He is on the PUP list for the first month of the year. They still have to figure out that situation. Overall, I'm not expecting much from this team in week 1. But a splash play or two from Richardson would be nice to see. As a Gators fan, I think he's super raw. He needs a year to sit. But if they're going to throw him into the fire, I want to see a splash play or two, maybe to like a Josh Downs there in the slot. But for Jacksonville, in my opinion, they have a very small chance to win it all this year, as it all starts with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. We know that. That's the two most important positions on any team, is the head coach and the quarterback. As in their first year together, Trevor Lawrence took the single highest leap in passer rating in NFL history from a year 1 to year 2 quarterback. Can they continue to improve in not only passer rating, but in other elements to just make the offense a better unit? That is going to be something we look out for. They're going to have some help. Of course, they traded for Calvin Ridley, and he's making his long-awaited return. I bet he bets that he is ready for prime time. I think he actually can be an all-pro receiver this year. All depends on how long that rust takes to wear off for Calvin Ridley on the field. We do have to watch out for this defense. I would like to see it take a step up this year if they're going to meet those Super Bowl aspiration claims from me. As again, they were 26 in sacks last year, a very underwhelming defense. But with Trayvon Walker taking another step, with Tyson Campbell taking another step, overall this defensive unit should be better this year, and I want to look out for that in week 1. Regardless, on the road, I'm taking Jacksonville pretty easily over the Indianapolis Colts. Moving over to San Francisco, going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. TJ Watt is back for Pittsburgh, and that's the biggest headline in this game. I think that makes all the difference because this is my upset pick of the week. Pittsburgh is a team that is known to start off hot in the regular season, and the 49ers, they haven't won at Pittsburgh since 1996. Absolutely insane. That was, of course, the year Jordan and the Bulls went 72-10. But this is the game for me that, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think San Francisco, of course, competes throughout the entire season, or throughout the entire game, but I do think Pittsburgh will come away with this win. Side note for San Fran, though, shout out to Nick Bosa. He single-handedly has reset the market for the edges and edge rushers in the NFL. He went from making $18 million a year, which was second in the league, to now making $34 million a year, far and away the most by an edge rusher in the NFL. So shout out to him, generational money, and shout out to him and his family, right? That's all good. But this just feels like a game that if Pittsburgh does win, it feels like the game that's going to be talked about the most by the media. As San Fran, they just traded away Trey Lance. I think we're going to overreact a lot to this game if Brock Purdy comes out and he looks mediocre against a very star-studded Pittsburgh defense. But I do have Pittsburgh winning this one at home. Basically, all the AFC North teams, aside from Cincy, will have a win in Week 1. Tennessee going to New Orleans. Derek Carr is going to be making his debut for the New Orleans Saints. And it's going to be, their best quarterback since Drew Brees. And that is going to be the story of this game ultimately, as he's definitely going to help this offense score a lot more, as they only averaged about 15 or 19 points a game last season, if my memory serves me right. Chris Olave is going to be the receiver and the option in this offense. He's looking to take that superstardom leap in year 2. If Michael Thomas can play more than half of football this year, this offense should be a very fun team, especially when Alvin Kamara comes back. For Tennessee, though, it's the same song and dance every single year. This year, they just have a new tool in DeAndre Hopkins. This is going to be a run-heavy offense that will pass when they need to, and somehow, someway, they've managed to win a lot of games over the years. But this year, Hopkins and Henry should do their thing for this year and for this game. I do think Derek Carr shows a lot of promise for the Saints in this game. They are home. They should put up a fight. But there is going to be that adjustment period between Dennis Allen and Derek Carr on the field, and I think that costs them in this game. I think the Titans win on the back of Derrick Henry. On the road, what's new? Winning on the back of Derrick Henry, as this might be the last elite year we see from Henry, but who knows? We said that 2 years ago. Moving over to the 4 o'clock games, it is the Las Vegas Raiders going to Denver and Mile High to take on the Broncos. And this is another set of teams where they have new beginnings, quote unquote. As for Las Vegas, Jimmy Garoppolo is now the quarterback. They went from Derek Carr to Jimmy G, so really just an even swap or even degressing there in quarterbacks. And they ended up paying him like he was better than Derek Carr. So that's going to be a new storyline to watch as Devontae Adams is frustrated. Josh Jacobs is frustrated. Chandler Jones can't even get in the facility there in Las Vegas. What is going to happen with a lot of these stars for Las Vegas? I'm not the highest on this team this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how the season plays out with their stars and if they're traded at the midseason mark. But for this game specifically, the new beginnings for Denver is that Sean Payton is now the head coach of the team. He's now back in football, and he's going to be making his head coaching debut, his first time since, of course, his tenure there in New Orleans. Las Vegas has won the last 3 games in this series in Denver, but I do think that streak ends here. I think Denver's going to take this one, just not in a pretty way. I think it's going to be very ugly, 13-10 game, 17-13 game, very ugly game, not fun to watch, but Denver does eke out a win at home, and I would absolutely love to see a Javonte Williams game. I just love the player, how he plays. If there's any way he can end up in Cleveland next year, I mean, sign me up to back up Nick Chubb. But Javonte Williams, super talented guy. I would love to see him maybe have a touchdown or 2 in his return to football. Philadelphia going to the New England Patriots, of course. Whenever I see these teams, I think of that Nick Foles game and how much that kind of screwed Carson Wentz in the long haul. Regardless, that was one of the best Super Bowls I've ever seen in my life. But this game will be highlighted by the 2 former Alabama quarterbacks with Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones. As for Philly, they have unfinished business. They lost the Super Bowl last year on a tacky pass interference call. And we've seen many times that some of these teams that lose in the Super Bowl really have a bad Super Bowl hangover. And I just don't think that's going to be the case for this Eagles team. Because Jalen Hurts is different. Jalen Hurts, his mentality and just overall the mentality of this team is just different compared to other teams that have Super Bowl hangovers. This team feels like they have done nothing and they want to get back to the top and win not only one but multiple Super Bowls. I believe they get back to the big game this year, and it all starts in Week 1 on the road in Foxborough. But for New England, they brought Bill O'Brien back, so this offense should look better than an 8-year-old's Madden play calling sheet, as they're not going to be running screens and runs anymore, at least not as often, as they've committed to their guy in Mac Jones, and we should see, with the pieces they brought in this offseason, with Zeke, with Juju, we should see, I think, at least a little bit more aggression in this offense. Maybe they push the ball down the field a bit more this year, and they can't just restrain their former first-round pick, Mac Jones. We should see a resurgence year from Mac this year. We should see a better offense. However, I'm going to take Philly in convincing fashion on the road because they are still the most complete team in football, but New England, we should see some improvement. The Los Angeles Rams going to the 12th man in, I think, Lumen Field now is what it's called, to take on the Seahawks. Cooper Kupp is out for this game. Of course, we know that, at least in the fantasy world. That's not, that leaves me with not much to say for this matchup. I mean, Matt Stafford's back for the Rams. They really had one of the worst Super Bowl hangovers we've ever seen last year. But the Seahawks still have Geno Smith. They paid him to a big contract, so shout out to Geno. But this is still a Pete Carroll-led team. They're still going to ground and pound. They're going to, grind it out. And that's just their approach on a year-in and year-out basis. They have Ken Walker. They have Zach Charbonnet. Those should be the stars of the game for the Seattle Seahawks. I also am very interested to see JSN's debut for this offense and how much he'll be involved, because they already do have 2 good receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Seattle, regardless of that, they swept this series last year. Both of those games, however, were decided by 4 points or less. Should still be entertaining. I am going to take Seattle to open up at home with a win here in 2023. Green Bay going to Chicago. The storied rivalry might be the longest rivalry in sports, dating all the way back to the early 1900s. But from a perception standpoint, few games will have a larger overreaction in Week 1 than this one. And let me explain, as Justin Fields is projected to take the next step, but nobody's going to believe it if he opens up the year and he loses to Green Bay for the 5th time in his career. He is currently 0-4, and with a loss here, he would be 0-5 against the Packers in his young career. But for Jordan Love, for the Packers, he's set to make his first start against the franchise in the Chicago Bears that Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers torched for a record of 46-15 as a starter of the Packers. So Jordan Love's coming in, not only succeeding Aaron Rodgers, right, who succeeded Brett Favre, so he's not only succeeding two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but he is taking on a franchise that they dominated for years and years. He's going to be held to that same expectation from Packers fans. But for Justin Fields and Jordan Love, I think they both show a lot of promise in this game. They both, they're back. It's a fantastic back and forth game. Classic NFC North matchup. But I am going to give the edge to Justin Fields at home in this one. He's going to get his first ever career win against the Packers. However, don't worry, Packers fans. Jordan Love will have some big moments this year. His time is coming in a big way pretty soon. The Dolphins go to the Chargers. And this game, man, I mean, it's Tua, it's Justin Herbert. With these offenses and the talent they have, this has the potential to be game of the year already in week 1 for the Chargers. I mean, it all starts with their new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. It's a pass-happy scheme, and he's going to have more talent than he's ever had at his disposal. It should be a special season there in Los Angeles. I have them making the playoffs. For Miami, it is all about Tua and in his health, ultimately. Is he going to be back to where we saw him last year? If he is, this might be the most explosive offense in the NFL. And when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, all led by Mike McDaniel, the offensive guru, your job is going to be as easy as it has ever been. As you can, I'll put it this way. I can go out there and throw a screen pass to Tyreek, and he can take it to a touch, and run for a touchdown. And that's not to diminish the talent of Tua. I think Tua is a top 10 quarterback. But it all comes down to his health, and if it's going to take him a month or two to get back to where the level of play we saw from last year, that's going to be the question for the Miami Dolphins in this game. But I do believe both teams finish around that 12-5 mark this year, and this matchup would then have playoff implications, even in week 1. But I will take the defense in Miami, led by Vic Fangio. You still have Bradley Chubb, and though Jalen Ramsey is out, I will take the overall better defensive unit, and that is the Miami Dolphins, at least of now. At least I'll make that prediction. The Giants in Dallas, as that's the first Sunday Night Football game of the year. It seems like that's the Sunday Night Football, the Week 1 Sunday Night Football game we get every single year. Regardless, Dallas is at home in this one. They've won 4 in a row in this series, including a pair of one-score games last year. It's another pressure-packed season for Dak Prescott. Even though he's 10-2 in his career against the Giants, this is a team that we're not worried about the regular season success anymore. I had them going 12-5, I think. But again, I said it in my prediction video, it's no longer about the regular season for this Cowboys team. It is about the postseason, because that is what this franchise has been riddled with since the 90s. Is they're good enough to get there, but can they get over the top? And they haven't been able to do that. Regardless, I think they still do open up this year with a win against a division foe. But for the Giants, they paid who they believe their guy is in Daniel Jones, and they paid him to a very big contract. They also figured out the Saquon situation for now, so he's going to be back, and this team should be back and better than ever. They still have a really, really promising defense, maybe a top 10 defense this year. We'll have to look out for that. But like always, this game's going to be close. It's going to be a tough game throughout, but I am going to take Dallas yet again. Maybe they eke out a last-minute field goal against the Giants on Sunday Night Football. I will take Dak to get off on the right foot. I mean, this is same song and dance for Dallas. They, they get off on the right foot. They can just never finish the job. And then to close off on Monday Night Football, we have the Bills going to the Jets. And this is a very good game. I mean, the Jets are back on Monday Night Football, so that means something big happened. I mean, they went from Zach Wilson to who? Oh, that's right. They went to Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback. So rightfully so, they open up the year on Monday Night Football. And for the Jets, not that it's a competition, but the guy that Rodgers succeeded there in Green Bay, Brett Favre, he went to New York after his time in Green Bay, and he won his debut with the Jets. So we're going to have to see if Aaron Rodgers can do the same thing. I do think he has a much tougher task here with the Buffalo Bills, as the Buffalo Bills are a way better team than the Dolphins that Brett Favre took on. Regardless, this New York team has a lot of young stars, that really makes them intriguing. They have Sauce Gardner, they have Garrett Wilson, they have Quinnen Williams, Mekhi Becton. These are going to be, there's a lot of young stars on this team, and it's all led by Aaron Rodgers. But can they put it all together and win at the highest stage? That's the biggest question for them this year, because their Super Bowl window was quite literally now. For Buffalo, They lost this matchup last year in New York, and Josh Allen really had a subpar game. But it's the same song and dance for Buffalo this year. They're good, but can they get over the hump? Same thing as Dallas. That is the question for this Buffalo Bills team this year. I do have the Jets winning this game on Monday night, and I do think Rodgers wins by a score or two. However, look out for this Bills team to be in the market for a Terry McLaurin, for a Cooper Kupp at the midseason mark. I really think they are in need of a splash, because if they fail yet again this year, they might go out there and panic and sell early, maybe fire a head coach or trade Stephon Diggs. They're in a situation now where there's so much pressure, they might panic. The only question is, how hard will they panic if they fail again this season? But that is my week one predictions. As to recap on your screen now, you see the winners. I'll give you a second to look at those. But ultimately, that is going to do it for today's show. As week one predictions are in the books, next week, on next Thursday, we're going to have a special guest here on the show, as you're very familiar with them. But every single week, I'm going to be trying to bring someone new on to do these predictions with. As sure, I can do this every week, and I can come on here and give you guys my predictions. However, you guys listen to me enough throughout the week. So if I can bring in another voice every single Thursday to go throughout the week, make some predictions, and get to know some fans out there, that is something I really want to do here for the channel. So be on the lookout for that, as next Thursday, we already have someone lined up. But again, here are my predictions on the screen. We'll see you guys tomorrow for some fantasy football some waiver wire pickups. And without further ado, enjoy football tonight. Football is back. The Lions, the Chiefs, Thursday night, Super Bowl celebration, action-packed night there in Arrowhead. So enjoy football tonight. Good luck to your fantasy teams if you have a guy playing tonight. If not, I will see you guys next Tuesday if you don't make tomorrow's video. And that's another great week of podcast. So until Tuesday, stay happy, stay healthy, enjoy football, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.